Good afternoon to everyone in this session. May we ask you to rename your Zoom names, okay, to indicate your institution and your name. Thank you. We will begin in 2 minutes. Good afternoon to everyone. Welcome to this session on best practices in ecological education and culture for the AUN Ecological Education and Culture Conference 2022. My name is Isabel Martin. I am the chair of the Department of Educational Leadership and Management of the Ateneo. Before that, just a brief some reminders. Maybe Aleli, can we show the reminders? Please be mindful of your microphones and video cameras throughout the program. We recommend that you use the side-by-side with speaker video option. And we have a chat function for your Q&A. So you may want to post your questions while we have the presentations. So for this afternoon, we have 4 presenters. And we have 90 minutes for these paper presenters. The paper presenters have 12 minutes for presentation and 5 minutes for Q&A. But as you are listening to the presentations, you may still want to begin to ask questions through the chat. Okay. So we will begin. Our first presenter, I believe our first presenter is in the room. Our first presenter is from the Institute of Crop Science, College of Agriculture and Food Science of the University of the Philippines, Los Baños. And she is going to talk about teaching and learning ecological agriculture at the UPLB, before, during, and beyond the pandemic. Let us welcome Dr. Maria Fatima O. Mercado. Dr. Mercado.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Good afternoon to each and everyone. Today, let me share my screen first. Can you now see my screen? Okay. Okay, so for this afternoon, the title of my presentation is Teaching and Learning Ecological Agriculture in the University of the Philippines, Los Baños, UPLB, before, during, and beyond the pandemic. So let us first get to know the course that tackles ecological agriculture in UPLB. So the course name and number is Agriculture 121. The course title is Introduction to Ecological Agriculture. So it is a 3-unit course offered every semester. So let's give a brief history of the course. The course was instituted in the 1980s at the Department of Agronomy, now Institute of Crop Science. And during those times, only agronomy major students were taking the course. So from a period of 1990 to 1995, there were discussions on the revision of the Bachelor of Science in Agriculture curriculum with sustainable agriculture as framework. And in 1997, the BSA curriculum or the new BSA curriculum was finally approved. And from then on until the present, all Bachelor of Science in Agriculture students are required to take the course, Agriculture 121. So as far as the learning modality is concerned, before the pandemic, of course, it's face-to-face. There are 2 meetings in a week, 1.5 hour per meeting for a total of 3 hours. And then there are 2 to 3 sections with 20 to 30 students per section. So lecture materials may be photocopied, and then consultation is in person. Okay, approach is participatory and activity oriented. But during the pandemic, the face-to-face, there was a shift from face-to-face to online. So online classes are via Zoom or Google Meet. So there is one synchronous meeting and one asynchronous session. Okay, there are 3 sections with 15 to 17 students per section. And Google Classroom is used as a learning management system. But now UP also encourages the faculty to use Canva. So we also use Facebook group for sharing of ideas and FB Messenger for easy communication. Now still, the approach is activity-oriented and participatory. So you can see here a table showing the teaching learning activities in the course. So we can see various activities like lecture, discussion, reading assignment, games, class presentation. Examples is role-playing, group projects, film showing, field trip, ecological food fair, development projects, video tutorial project, and invitation of resource person. And you can see the comparison between before the pandemic and during the pandemic in terms of how often these activities are being performed by the students. So there are pre-pandemic group activities that were retained during the pandemic. So one of them is the songs related to ecological agriculture, incorporating music as a learning tool. So these songs are also known as earth songs, environmental songs, songs about nature. And students' song choices are usually pop or mainstream songs, or sometimes they change the lyrics of the song. Palit liriko. So the instructions are choose a song related to ecological agriculture and sing it in class, and give the line or lines of the song that struck you the most and explain your answer. So the most popular song that the students always perform every semester is Kapaligiran by Asin. Okay. And another group activity that was retained during the pandemic is the Let's Play a Game. Games about ecological agriculture practices. So instructions, the class will be divided into groups. So each group will be assigned to one ecological agriculture practice, and then the group will think of a game and formulate at least 15 questions from the learning materials provided by the instructor. So here are examples of the games thought of that the students thought of. So 4 picks, 1 word inspired game, ecological charades, agri bingo, agri guess game, jumbled words, guess the emoji game, who wants to be an ecological millionaire, agri cool artist, Jeopardy version agri 121, hidden picture game, crossword puzzle, and Kahoot, and arrange me game. And here are some examples of the question prepared by the students. For the arrange me game, one question was gradual build-up of toxins in individual organisms causing these harmful substances to enter the food web. So the answer is bioaccumulation. And then the other example for the game Who Wants to Be an Ecological Millionaire, I am not an animal, I am not a person. Somehow, my name reminds you of a person. First syllable is a profession. Second to third forms a musician. And choose me and I'll fight against soil erosion. So give my common name and the money will be yours and your teams. So the answer is vetiver. So vetiver is actually a member of the grass family that is considered to be soil stabilizer. Okay, so what are advantages of group activities? So group activities encourage teamwork and collaboration. Students learn how to break down tasks or delegate tasks and allocate responsibilities, and also resolve conflicts. So group activities also allow group discussion, thereby enhancing the communication skills of the students. And individuals' weakness do not affect the group. How about for the disadvantages? No? There may be an even distribution of tasks, but this may be addressed by doing a peer evaluation. Another disadvantage is the struggle for quieter students and more time for discussion. And sometimes peer evaluation may lead to conflicts. Okay, so there are group activities, per-pandemic group activities that were substituted by individual activities because it's not possible no, to do the group activities because of the imposition of the lockdown, because we are all in our homes. No? So we cannot, the students cannot meet. No? Okay, so one of them is the students' concept of ecological agriculture through an artwork. So you can see in this slide, no, the photos of one group, no, of Agri 121 students from second semester 2019, 2020 before the pandemic, and you can see their output. Okay. So how about during the pandemic? No? So since they cannot meet, no, what I thought of is to have this activity carried out individually. So you can see in the slide, no, the photo of all my students, no, flashing their outputs. No? And on the right, you can see their examples of their individual outputs. Okay, so another activity from group to individual is the recycling or repurposing from trash to treasure. So this is part of the discussion on ecological agriculture in everyday life. How students can apply no, the principles of ecological agriculture in their everyday life. So I asked them to recycle or repurpose an item. So you can see here, before the pandemic, this is usually done by group, and the two groups as shown here, recycled paper, plastic bottles and scratch papers. You can see also their outputs. But during the pandemic, no, so again, since they cannot meet, no, I thought of having this activity carried out individually, and you can see their outputs. No, so one of the students recycled a PET bottle to become a penguin holder. So another student recycled face mask and biscuit wrapper to become flower bouquet. But of course, the mask no, was disinfected first. Okay, and we also see here repurpose nata de coco bottles. So before the pandemic, we usually hold an ecological food fair by group. As you can see from the picture, the students are holding their dishes, one main dish, one dessert, which they actually prepare and share with their classmates. But this is not possible during the pandemic. So what I thought of is for my students to just share a photo or photos of the dish that they prepared no, in their homes. No? And share also the recipe and the reason why they consider the dish ecological. And we post this in our FB group page, as well as FB group, and also in our FB page. So here are examples of the students, of the dishes prepared by the students. So one student prepared the batso nga tabungaw, which is actually the Ilocano term for ginisang upo or sauteed bottle gourd. And we have also ginataang labong with hipon. So ginataang labong is actually bamboo shoots cooked in coconut milk with shrimps. And veggie scrap chips from the peel of carrot and stems of broccoli. And tinoom na manok no, is native of Iloilo. So other dishes included dinengdeng, pinakbet, and bulanglang, which showcase biodiversity because of the varied ingredients used. Okay, so before the pandemic, there are field trips. No? So we go to nearby towns or municipalities. No? And as you can see here, these are some of the places that we bring our students to So we have Ato Belen's Farm in San Pablo City, Villegas Organics in Malvar, Batangas, Costales Nature Farm in Mahayahay, Laguna, and CRTD in Calauan, Laguna. But because of the imposition of the lockdown, and students or we are all in our homes, no, these field trips cannot be done, no. So what substituted the field trips are case studies and virtual field trips, no. So for the case studies, uh, these are actually documentation of actual farms in the Philippines practicing organic agriculture, an output of a project that we had in 2012, wherein we visited 8 provinces in the Philippines and documented farms, no, that practice organic agriculture. And also, another source of the case studies are from the FB page, Humans to Grow Food. And now we also have virtual field trip. Now, and this is a very good film that I discovered. It's entitled The Biggest Little Farm. And here, the students, no, have a virtual field trip to Apricot Lane Farms in Moon Park, California. So this is a 2018 American documentary film directed by John Chester. Okay. So before the pandemic, they have a development work. It's called the Adapt a School or Adapt a Barangay project. So it's an outreach project which aimed to promote ecologically sound practices to students and residents of a local community. And this is carried out by group. This could be a half or 1 day activity in their chosen site, and they will be asked to present this in class orally and submit a written report. But because it's not possible to do this during the pandemic, what I thought of is to substitute this with video tutorials. So the students will create a 3 to 5 minute video tutorials, so individually, and then these video tutorials will be uploaded to the page that we created last April 2020 during the early part of the pandemic. So the page name is Eco Agriculture Students for a Sustainable Future. So currently it has already 50 video tutorials, and the ecological dishes, the recipes, the photos are also uploaded. Some of them are uploaded in this page. Okay. So beyond the pandemic, so students returning to their classrooms doesn't necessarily mean reverting back totally to the old ways. Okay, and totally excluding the learning innovations and activities developed during the pandemic, because some of them are really worth keeping and worth continuing. So here are some of the examples. Okay, so to promote ecologically sound practices, I think both the development work and video tutorials will be required. But this time, the video tutorials may be carried out by group and not individually. And this could be part of their development work. They can use this as their audiovisual presentation during their development work, Adapt a School or Adapt a Barangay. So another is for field trips and case studies. I plan to continue with both of these. So because as discussed earlier by our last panelist, it's very important that we include field trips in our subjects, in our classes. And of course, the case studies will give the students a broader view of how some farmers practice ecological agriculture in other places. And for the food festival and sharing of ecological dish in Facebook, we will continue with this. So we'll have a food festival, and the recipe, plus maybe the photos, we can still share in our Facebook page. So in essence, best practices and innovations developed during the pandemic can still be adapted in the new normal. Okay, so I think that will be all, and thank you very much for listening.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Mercado. The floor is now open for questions. There are two ways to post your question. You may write it in the chat box, or you can unmute your mic and address Dr. Mercado directly. Any questions from the floor? Maybe I have just a very simple question, Dr. Mercado, about from the point of view of the students in the online setup, which was the most challenging for them?
For them, I think the most challenging is the creation of the video tutorial, because
Yeah.
for some of them, it was their first time to do that, no? And they were having trouble with the video recording itself, how they will record the video, as well as the editing,
Yeah.
no? Because some of them do not really know how to edit videos, so they have to watch YouTube in order to have some idea on how to do the editing, and also for the sourcing of the materials. Now it was a challenge for them, especially during the early part of the pandemic, when they cannot go out and they will just ask their parents now to maybe buy for them now the materials that they need for the tutorials.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for that, Dr. Mercado. If we can take in one more question. We have a minute before the next presentation.
So by the way, may I ask you to like our FB page, Eco Agriculture Students for Sustainable Agriculture. So at present, there are less than 300 likes. So maybe we can
Yes.
promote this page, because I think you can use this in your classes also. You can show your students the video tutorials, because uh, these are actually very short tutorials that can really have an impact to your students in terms of how they can practice ecological agriculture. And because we also have categories or video tutorials categorized as do-it-yourself
Okay.
home, do-it-yourself cosmetics, like that. So
Yeah.
I allowed them to include that, no, so that there will be a variety, in the video tutorials. So
Yes.
please like our FB
Yeah,
page.
Dr. Mercado, can you write the title of the FB page?
Yes, I will just chat.
Yes. Okay.
No,
Okay. Thank
later.
you.
Thank you
Thank
very
you very
much.
much. Thank you very much for that engaging presentation about teaching this course before and after and beyond the pandemic. Thank you, Dr. Mercado, for that. For
Okay,
our
thank you.
second presentation, we have from the Environmental Biology Division of the Institute of Biological Sciences of also University of the Philippines, Los Baños. We have Dr. Ronilo Flores, Romela Meringuela, John Vincent Pleto, and Fepi Rose Paro, who will talk to us about planetary health education framework in focus, scoping a university's graduate course offerings and ecology-related activities for planetary health education potential. So I think Dr. Flores has sent his video, and we will now play it for you. Thank you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of my co-authors, Professors Romela T. Baringuela, John Vincent R. Pleto, and Fevi C. Paro, my name is Renilo Jose D. Florence, and I am very pleased and honored to present to you this afternoon our paper entitled Planetary Health Education Framework in Focus, Scoping a University's Graduate Course Offerings and Ecology-Related Activities for Planetary Health Education Potential. Well, we've seen this picture all over the internet. This just symbolizes or denotes the fact that the world has changed and we live in a new world now because of the pandemic. And this put into importance or put under the spotlight health sciences, specifically transdisciplinary approaches to understanding health and ecology. Now, in 2015, the Rockefeller Foundation, Lancet Commission on Planetary Health launched and actually coined or defined what planetary health is. It is a new, relatively new scientific field and movement that is focused on understanding, quantifying, relating the growing human health impacts of anthropogenic global environmental changes, which are also caused by humans. And also, not just that, this field also aims to develop solutions that will allow humanity and the natural system we depend on to thrive now and in the future. So the main idea is that the environment is changing. Of course, we know that, but this time it's not only climate that is changing. A lot of things that are related to our existence as a population um, is changing. So forests are being cleared, biodiversity are being are shifting or disappearing. Oceans are desertifying, land is the ocean is acidifying, land is desertifying, the biogeochemical cycles are altered, etc., etc. And all of these effects would have human consequences like cardiovascular diseases, respiratory diseases, infectious zoonotic diseases, antimicrobial resistance, which are all very important. Toxins, heat strokes, and even mental health effects. And of course, COVID-19 and the emergence of new diseases. Now, if we relate all of these or dissect these into thematic portions, you would see that the planetary health is surrounded by different fields, no, and disciplines or topics: biochemical flows, global pollution, changing land use, urbanization, etc. Diseases, nutrition, mental health, infections, both pertains to the health of the environment and the health of the people. Now, in the world, there has been a considerable activity in terms of making planetary health as or in terms of institutionalizing planetary health in the academe. There are some universities that have started offering planetary health as part of their curriculum. May it be a graduate course or undergraduate program. But in the Philippines, just recently last year, a group, we convened a group with the leadership of Dr. Renzo Quinto. We call ourselves the Planetary Health Philippines, and this features members, who agreed or who are working in the field of health and environment, roughly on those areas, and we believe the importance of Filipinizing planetary health because it has to be communicated, it has to be relevant to the Philippines. And of course, if you scan around, if you scope activities for planetary health, there has, a little activity on this left and right. You have seminars and webinars all around. And even one of the schools in Manila actually launched a planetary and global health program. You have, webinars and seminars all around. In UPLB, we even I was invited to be part of TEDx, and I talked about planetary health. In the undergrad curriculum, we started offering a special topics course, and it has been offered for 3 years now. This is the third consecutive first semester that has been offered, and even in international conferences and even in the GE curriculum. Now, in 2021, we tried to scope the existing graduate courses, in UP Los Baños, and we have tried to cluster them into within the themes that were identified later a while ago that I presented to you, and identified 4 major clusters: the ecology clusters, the health science cluster, the socioeconomic and policy cluster, and humanities and communication cluster, being a transdisciplinary field, planetary health would aim or would also expose you to different fields and disciplines. Now, these are some of the courses that we analyze in terms of their course description and content that would make uh, the cut, that would be included in the ecology class. I mean to say it has to touch upon ecology as a field. So erosion, statistical hydrology, environmental physiology, air quality, etc. So these are the different ecology related um, subjects. These are just some. There are a lot, about 100 of them that we uh, scoped or scanned. So for the health science clusters, this would be this has something to do with human health, human environmental health, outbreaks, system analysis, bioinformatics for certain pathogenic uh, microbes, yeah, clinical laboratory, man health environment. These are the field practice, etc. Socioeconomic clusters. This would be for that is related to economics, humanities, communication, development communication. Okay, communication and culture. So these are some. Now we have been working on this for for the past year, and in 2022 the uh the Planetary Health Alliance released a planetary health education framework that was just released recently, and this framework is an organized dynamic interpretation of the breadth of planetary health education. Um, it's it is this believed to be a common foundational language for learners and educators around the world. So we thought that it might be okay or might be beneficial for us to also try to look at these existing courses in the light of this planetary health education framework. So basically, the planetary health education framework um, considers five foundational domains, knowledge, values, and practices, namely number one, interconnection with nature, the Anthropocene and health, equity and social justice, movement building and systems change, and systems thinking and complexity. If you take a look at these five, this would actually be somehow related to the four clusters that we have done in 2021 that we have decided on. And this is the figure that I lifted from the report of the Planetary Health Alliance. You would see that the global agenda and priorities and anthropogenic changes at the planetary scale would surround the local socioeconomic, cultural, environmental conditions and local learning priorities. Both of these environmental or external effects would actually have an impact on this particular interconnectedness of the five different subdomains. You have the Anthropocene and health, equity and justice, systems thinking and complexity, and movement building and systems change. And at the center, the core of it is actually interconnection with nature, because that is the foundation of what planetary health is. As population, as human beings, our interconnection, our connectedness to nature, whether we just whether as a consumer, a producer, as as a polluter, or as a health worker. So so therefore ecology, or the interconnection with nature, is actually put into the limelight or center. So if we match the courses we did also matching the courses that we previously have done, and we've seen that indeed 90% of the courses would actually touch upon interconnection with nature, and Anthropocene and health would have 60%, movement and building system change 70%, equity and social justice 70%, and systems and thinking complexity 75%. Why did we do all of these things? We are currently designing, actually, in proposing graduate courses. One has been submitted already and in the process of being approved, the PhD by Research in Tropical Ecology, and the Master of Science in Tropical Ecology and Planetary Health. And we are still conducting a survey. And if you want to know about these courses, you may visit the UPLB Tropical Ecology and Planetary Health Initiative, the Facebook page, and the surveys and the information are actually posted there. So my takeaways here is that UP Los Baños is very strong in terms of the central domain, which is the interconnection with nature, since the campus or the university is strong in forestry, ecology, agriculture, environmental studies, and human ecology, etc. But there is a need to further strengthen the Anthropocene and health, especially in terms of human health, since we don't have a College of Medicine here or a College of Public Health, but we do have a College of Veterinary Medicine. The ways forward, moving on to capitalize the strength, especially now that we are proposing a master's in tropical ecology, collaborate on crafting and adopting courses, push for transdisciplinary approaches in our courses, and finally institute planetary health graduate courses, which is what we are doing right now. I leave you with this message. You cannot do all the good the world needs, but the world needs all the good you can do. Thank you very much for listening and good afternoon.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Flores, for that presentation. I understand that Dr. Flores and his colleagues are here now and can address your questions live. So if there are any questions, please write it in the chat box, or you can unmute yourselves and direct your questions to our presenters. I think we have one here, Dr. Flores, in the chat box. It says, thank you for that very interesting presentation. Planetary health is an excellent area of study where we should be reminded of the dictum, think globally, but act locally. But ideally, to act presupposes being able to focus on identified priorities. What do you then would be the environmental concern issue that Philippine communities should prioritize? As I gathered from your talk, are you in any way advocating prosumerism? Dr. Flores.
Good afternoon. Yeah, can I be heard? Okay. Apparently my internet is working. It has been really, really hard on campus. Thank you very much, ma'am. And thank you very much to Mr. Louis Montemar for the question. I'll just read it back. Thinking globally. Okay. Okay. What environmental issue that Philippine communities should prioritize? Actually, one central thing, if you take a look at planetary health, it's transformative inclusive action. That's really something that is very clear in all of the statements when you take a look at all of the documents that has been released by these planetary health workers or planetary health movers. By saying that it should start, then the idea is starting from the home, right? The home, the practices that we do at home, the shifts in our practices. No, for example, one of the main things that is advocated of planetary health is the planetary health diet, shifting from an animal, shifting to a plant-based diet, which is because that is proven to be, or that is believed to be, contributing less carbon footprints. Kasi hindi naman yung farming, madali lang siya, less inputs, sa mga less use of feeds, di ba? Yung feed manufacturing and all of that. So when you compute its carbon footprint, mababa talaga siya. So one thing also is that intergenerational education. So right now, the target, actually, medyo oxymoron like nga yung ginagawa kasi the target is graduate education. Pero the real target should be the young, the kids, intergenerational education. So you educate both the young and the old. Now, in terms of the shift in practices, kailangan lang talaga, no, we take a look at the activities that we do at home. That's the number one thing. So if there is an issue in our communities that we need to to first address are the anthropogenic effects of our activities at home to the immediate environment. So I guess that is where we can contextualize and probably just juxtapose yung sinasabi ni Mr. Liu here, that thinking globally and acting locally.
Okay.
Right. So I think that's it. We just have to be mindful of the things that we do at home and its effect to the environment.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Jose.
Thank you very much.
Although there is one related question about advocating prosumerism. So I understand that to be production and consumption put together, no, prosumers rather than simply producers or consumers.
Yeah, it's really from what I understand, it's really the increased involvement of the customers in the production process. No, it's somehow well, it's somehow participating in the design of the things that we consume, right? Prosumerism. I think it's a very good idea, and I think that's the direction. Although it's planetary health as a movement and a field has never advocated for that. But come to think of it, when we try to design certain things that we need to produce and consume, we should always put into consideration the effects of these things to the environment, which all has ultimately an effect to human health or to the population's health. So I think in one case, yes, it is beneficial because we can design certain things that have minimal effects to the environment and consequently minimal effects to human health in general.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Flores, for your insights and your presentation. I at this point, I think we will proceed now, no, to our next presenter.
Thank you very much, ma'am.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Flores and colleagues. I understand that our next presenter, Dr. Yanti Rosley, is not in the room. Okay. So what we can do is we will move the presentation towards the end, and we will ask the fourth presenter to go on ahead. Okay, so I think we have JC Kirong. Okay, yes. From the Department of Art Studies of University of the Philippines in Diliman, JC Kirong is going to talk about consumer objects and aesthetic reflection, possible directions in ecological art education.
Ayun, maraming salamat. I would like to apologize in advance if I would be a little disoriented, since I'm currently recovering from COVID at the moment. But but nevertheless, a good thing it's an online conference. Nevertheless, good afternoon. So this presentation will tackle my reflections on a module on consumerism and art I have introduced in my classes in the General Education course Arts 1, Critical Perspectives in the Arts in the University of the Philippines, Diliman, for 2 semesters online. I will be discussing the theoretical grounding behind my choices in designing the learning experiences of my students, and I shall also tackle the implementation of the module and some observations I had on my students' output and behavior. So next slide, please. So starting off, now let us look at the art critic and theorist Susie Gablik and her work, The Reenchantment of Art. No? In here, no, she looks at the state of current art practice and the relationship of the art world with the greater world around it. Now, she laments the detached orientation of art and artists towards the earth, saying that modernism, above all, exalted the complete autonomy of art and the gesture of severing bonds with society. Now, she also cites photographer David T. Hanson and his sentiments about his own work, noting that man's lack of holistic consciousness sets them separate from and even in opposition to nature. Despite being written 3 decades ago, these words still seem to ring true. Art only answers to itself. Art production could easily be divorced from the world and the reality of the earth and the community of people inhabiting it. Gablik advocates for a connective aesthetics, rekindling the connections between each other, and the environment, redefining the self as relational rather than as separate and self-contained. Gablick's insights would be heavily influential for the field of ecological art education, with much of the literature mentioning her work. Next slide, please. A survey of literature on the topic now would point out that the general orientation of current practice in the field of art, ecological art education is towards the engagement of civic concerns through art production. So some examples now would be place-based education, community-based art, the incorporation of visual culture in making practices, sustainable art production, among others. No? Though environmental approaches in art history and art criticism would be mentioned in some instances. No? Some of these projects have been very fruitful, like those of the keynote speakers that we have listened to earlier. No? But given my background in the humanities and art history, no, I would like to contribute to the field further by looking deeper into other facets of art education, such as visual culture and aesthetics, that currently aren't paid much attention to. No? So next slide, please. Now, following the lead of art educators such as Paul Duncombe, Emmanuel Aguirre, and Neri Carter, now I sought to incorporate the pragmatist aesthetics of John Dewey and Richard Chesterman into my teaching practice. Um, in here, art is reconceptualized as experience rather than as an intrinsic quality of an artifact. This orientation would make classes amenable to the scope to open the scope of what is usually discussed in the art classroom beyond what could be seen in galleries or art history books. In an attempt to channel Gablick's call for a connective aesthetics that pursues a holistic view of the world, acknowledging the interconnectedness of the many facets of human experience, I sought to open up to my students the world of the everyday in the commercial consumer product as a venue for aesthetic inquiry. Now, our experience of the aesthetic is not only compartmentalized in the fine arts or the media that we consume. So, in expanding our scope, it's not just the topic and content that should be shifted, but also our approach to these objects. Unlike usual approaches in art criticism and visual culture, we also attempt to incorporate the realm of other modes of knowing and feeling, going beyond mere interpretation and analysis of representation of subjects, like an attempt to try to decode meanings in the things that we see. In here, we try to recognize the states that we feel and the aesthetic dispositions and standards we subject the things we see to. Now, in the module on consumerism, which I labeled on materiality, ecology, and art, we revolved around two themes in class, no? The aesthetic nature of the everyday and the material nature of art. So next slide, please. So on the first theme, I sought to emphasize the aesthetic character of everyday life and our natural need for beauty and imagination. If we only cage those aspects of our lives in what we could produce and look at in the normal art classroom, it would leave other facets of our lives impoverished, disenchanting and removing the wonder of the outside world, of work, of our homes, of our schools, and our communities. Art educator Paul Duncombe notes that actually the way that we interact with ourselves and the world around us is more shaped by the more ordinary aesthetic experiences that we encounter every day compared to the more special experiences that we see in things that we usually consider as art. And yet, it is these common experiences that are usually left unexamined and not made aware of. No? When you look at our ways of consumption, for example, the way we interact with sites as Shopee and Lazada, or the way we buy in commercial establishments like malls or restaurants, we see that our decisions are not merely pragmatic or utilitarian. Especially in a time filled with advertisements and product placements in media, our motivations for consumption deal with the aesthetic, our senses, our desires, emotions, sense of enjoyment and pleasure. Ignoring these in our pursuit for sustainable living is ignoring a significant part of our lives. No? So next slide, please. Next slide, please. Ayan. In order to illustrate this more clearly, now let us look at preferences for whiteness. No? It's clear that it's not for practical concerns that we invest so much in bleach or other specialized detergents to preserve the whiteness of clothes or removing stains when washing them would be enough to make clothes sanitary. Now, or on the other hand, now, when we look at cars, people would actually prefer paying a premium coat of white pearl for around 15,000 pesos compared to an ordinary white car due to its unique luster and its immunity from fading and yellowing. Now, these are not practical or rational motivations for consumer behavior. No? And maybe we will be looking at this further later. No? So next slide, please. Um, so on the second theme, no, we explore the interconnectedness by emphasizing that art is not mere abstract idea. Art does not merely shape or reflect the world. It is also part of it. Art is material. It is made from a network of human hands and not just the artists, no, and made from the materials of the earth. Even in the time of digital art, where this could be easily ignored, the issues of NFTs would actually show us the physical resources needed for the technology and energy in its maintenance. Um, so next slide, please. In order to inculcate this further in my students, no, especially the ones taking art production courses such as fine arts or clothing technology, etc., no, I made them do a supply chain tracing activity regarding the things they enjoy around the house. Now, in this slide, no, we tried to trace the life cycle of a Samsung phone and encountered the ecological and societal damage its production have done in various parts of the world, from its material sourcing to manufacturing, distribution, and disposal. In this activity, my students would look into various products, such as sardines or Nestle milk, or Nike shoes or Shein brand clothes, among others. Next slide, please. Now, in order to process everything that we have encountered, our activities, lectures, and also a reading that I gave them on consumer aesthetics and possible alternatives, I gave them guide questions for further reflection and discussion, trying to unearth what they conceive enjoyable and beautiful in the things that they consume. Now, some of the questions I posed to them were, can there still be enjoyable consumption outside consumerism? No? And if it can, no, will it be as enjoyable? No? And another set of questions now would be, how would you imagine consumption outside consumerism? No? Um, in our discussions, now we would unpack qualities that we usually find desirable in consumer objects, such as trendiness, novelty, among others. Some students would suggest other strategies for enjoyable, sustainable consumption, such as the concept of the throwback, or normalizing the minimalist aesthetic, so that there would be less need for new clothes or fashion items. Next slide, please. Yeah. Even if our open-ended discussions would not usually reach a conclusion or a clear direction, asking questions and being aware of our dispositions and the things that we value, I think would be a good start for introducing this equilibrium and change in my students' beliefs about life and the world. Looking at some of the reflections of my students, one would share the difficulty of reflecting on the guide questions due to her materialistic lifestyle. Now, I think that difficulty, or maybe in Tagalog, we could consider that as bagabag, is enough disequilibrium to slowly shift perceptions. And another group of students, in another instance, also shared that the landfill, factory, and the disfigured face of a worker would harm their aesthetic experience of a beautiful consumer product. Now, can you really consider a thing beautiful if the processes behind making them are not? No? And another student, appreciated the valuing of ordinary things, even a mere pencil, and the beauty in practices of repair, such as the Japanese art of repairing pottery or kintsugi. Making students reflect on their dispositions and attitudes around the things around them could be a good starting point and foundation in promoting sustainable art production and more ecological lens in the analysis of art history, criticism, and society in general. It would be also interesting to look further into how these practices and theoretical orientations could be developed in the face-to-face classroom and how this could be further enriched through political engagement projects and integration with other parts of the curriculum in general education and maybe also in arts and humanities majors. In doing so, I hope that we could strive not only for the re-enchantment of art, but also the re-enchantment of the world. This concludes my presentation. Maraming salamat. Um,
Thank you. Thank you very much for that presentation on art education. The floor is now open for questions. Would anyone like to direct a question? I can see clapping hands. Or you may also chat your, you may also write your questions in the chat box. Ako, I have just a simple question. I'm not really that I'm not very familiar with art studies, but from the point of view of teaching, what you have described, have you asked your students to reflect on their actual practice as consumers? Like, for example, in buying, yung nabanggit mo yung Lazada tsaka yung Shopee, di ba? It's a very, paano ba yun? It's a very clickbaitable platform. Do your students engage in these shopping platforms, and what is their reflection on that in terms of what you talked about today?
Thanks for that question. No? So parang looking back no, at my past classes,
Yeah.
that's why I made them do the um supply chain tracing activity so that they would be more aware no, of the things inside their house. No? And I think no, that made them reflect a lot. No? And I think some of the students no, in our discussions would actually mention these online shopping sites and how it produced more plastic waste no, and
Yeah.
more consumerist behaviors. And actually, just like what I said earlier, one of my students actually realized how materialistic her lifestyle is and how difficult it is to reimagine enjoyment without those kinds of products. And the fact that they became aware of that disposition, I think, is enough progress to change and maybe reflect once more no, on one's behaviors around the environment.
Yes. Yes.
Uh,
Yeah, thank you for that. And this is also maybe to connect to the earlier presentation on planetary health. Kasi during the pandemic, we had no choice but to rely on delivery. And we know that that practice of delivery really also produces more carbon footprints, di ba? So that tension between buying something that you need or buying something that you want, plus the fact that you're having it delivered rather than going there, no, also contributes to all of these issues about ecological art, education, as well as planetary health. Okay. Meron pa tayong ano from the floor? Okay. Okay, if not, then I would like to thank Mr. Kirong for the presentation today. We will check now and see if we have the next presenter, Dr. Rosley. Is Dr. Rosley in the house? Aleli, do we have?
No, ma'am, it's not here.
Okay. So as we have not really heard from Dr. Rosley, who is one of our presenters, we will have to at this point shorten this session, no, to what we have. But before we proceed, we'd like to ask if you are open to opening your camera, open to opening, if you would like to open your camera so we can have a photo opportunity, no, for all of us who are present in this session today. Okay, kung kaya lang that we open our camera. Ayan, it's very nice to see everyone. Hello, hello. Minsan talaga ito yung problema sa Zoom kasi, no, and we have no choice. Parang minsan feeling mo kausap mo ang kawalan, diba? But if you have if you can see faces and smiles, it's really very refreshing. So, okay, meron pang a few. Pero sige, hindi na natin pipilitin. Okay lang, but okay, so kaya pa? To those who are in the room, kaya pa mag-open ng camera so we can have more nice smiles in our photo? Okay. O, sige. Okay, good, good. Baka yung iba kasi hindi ako naririnig. Cameras, you can stop your show your video so we can have a photo. Okay, I think Aleli, will you be the one?
Yes, ma'am, sure. This one only 2 slides.
Okay, just give us instructions na lang.
Okay po. Okay. So 1, 2, 3. Okay, next slides. 1, 2, 3. Thank you po.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your participation in this session. And at this point, we will now proceed with our closing, no, our closing remarks. And our closing remarks will be delivered by the Executive Director of AUN EEC. She's Professor of the Department of Educational Leadership and Management and the Director of the Lili Ngochua Center for Leadership Leadership Academy, sorry. Dr. Asunta Kuyegkeng.
Hello, everyone. We hope we had a fruitful time during this session and the conference as a whole. On behalf of the Conference Secretariat, I would like to thank you for participating in the events yesterday and today. We hope that the lecture and panel discussions yesterday gave you insights on what we can learn from those who came before us, from those who understood that they were part of the natural world and that their activities impacted not only the environment, but their own societies and resources. We hope that the lectures and panel discussion this morning inspired you to become engaged as citizens who will help define a more positive future. This afternoon was more focused on your interests. We hope that the session gave you ideas for your own work, as well as ideas for collaboration. Special thanks to Dr. Isabel Martin for moderating this session. And to all the participants, thank you for making time for this session. As we end this conference, we invite you to join us in the future activities of the ASEAN University Network on Ecological Education and Culture. Stay safe and well. Maraming salamat po at mabuhay.
Maraming salamat and thank you very much. Please keep in touch and we will be, especially for future conference of the AUN EEC. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Thank you for joining us. Bye. Bye. Thank you, Aleli. Thank you.